Hey everybody, Michael from the Watch Preserve here with Thomas, the librarian and archivist here at the National Watch and Clock Museum. Thomas, this is a really impressive collection of books that you have, some of them quite rare, some of them very, very interesting and valuable. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you got into watches or clocks and how you started here at the museum.
All right, yeah, so I actually came into this without any background in horology.
Oh,
I
really?
came in as a librarian and archivist. I got my degree, and this happened to open up at a similar time to when I finished my degree. During my interview, I was basically told, I can teach you horology, I can't teach you to be a librarian, so it works out there. Kind of became a crash course to learn all the intricacies of horology as quick as I could, to be able to reopen up the library and research center so that people could come in with their questions.
Right.
Basically, like my first week, I got a question from someone asking about some super niche technical information on a French clock, and I just looked at the question, had no idea what was going on. Now I got to the point that I can answer a lot of questions without a thought, because I either know the answer from having already done something like it,
Yeah.
or I at least know where in the library I can find that information. In addition to that, I also, during my lunch break, will go over to the school, take apart a clock, clean it, put it back together, just kind of learn the more technical aspects as well.
Good for you.
That helps me out here. So then if someone calls in and says, I have a problem with a Seth Thomas cottage clock, I have an idea, okay, they're talking about a clock from this era, probably spring-driven, probably has this issue, what are we looking for with it?
Man, that's quite a learning curve to go from with no experience at all to be able to talk about the intricacies of a cottage clock.
Yeah.
I'm nowhere even near that. I mean, most of my expertise even is just with wristwatches, and then even then, it's just there's always people that know way more than you do.
Yeah.
It's so hard to specialize. So how long ago was it that you started here?
So this September will be 2 years that I've been here.
Nice.
So I started just after the last national convention in Lancaster. And it basically was just, I started super steep learning curve, eventually picked up enough stuff. Even if I didn't know the information or know where to find it, I've made quite a few contacts in the membership to kind of help me out with. I have this Swiss pocket watch. All I know is the cylinder escapement. What else can you tell me?
Yeah.
Or I know this is made by this maker from France in the 18th century. I don't know anything else about it.
Wow, that's a very, very high level of expertise that you've developed to answer those kinds of questions. What is, for the librarian and for the archival process, what does the day-to-day look like? Is it answering a lot of emails, working on research projects?
So it kind of depends what's happening. Sometimes I get flooded with research questions, so that basically becomes my daily work schedule there. Sometimes I have a backlog of books to catalog into the collection. Sometimes I have a ton of donations coming in that week. Like this week, I already have about 10 donations set to come in between tomorrow and Friday. So that'll probably take up my day, at least getting it in, writing up the form, figuring out if anything's urgently needing any preservation work to it. And then kind of I squeeze in here and there what else I can do. Basically, I tell people some days I'm just a librarian, some days I'm just an archivist. Kind of depends on what's on my desk. But a lot of times I try to bounce around so I'm not just sitting in one thing for too long, unless obviously it necessitates me to do it.
Right. What's your favorite aspect of the archival process? Is it getting new entries in that you kind of have to preserve, or is it I mean, what's your favorite aspect?
So my favorite's going through it to help with like research questions, or if I'm trying to reevaluate a collection to kind of make its finding aid or its description better than just box of Hamilton material.
Sure.
I can go through and say, okay, this is the box of change orders from X to Y, or this is a box of Seth Thomas catalog pages, something like that. It's more so the research side of it, because I came into this with a history background, so I like that kind of aspect of it more so than the technical, but I do learn the technical, so that can help at least as well.
Yeah, very cool. So you have a background in history. Is that what your major was in?
Yeah, that was my major, and my first grad degree was history, and then the second one was the library science that got me the archival training.
There you go. So coming out of school, I mean, was it sort of a move to the left field or something, going for something at the Watch and Clock Museum, or did you sort of, when you read about what they do here, was that really what piqued your interest?
So I had visited here the spring before I got hired, just because I was in the area. We were trying to find something to do, and I said, the Clock Museum's here, let's go. I like museums, so we'll figure something out while we're there. So when I came to interview, I at least had some idea of kind of what happens here.
Yeah.
It was just kind of it was post-COVID. A lot of museums and libraries had no money to hire staff.
Yeah.
So as something opened up, I was ready to jump on it, and I was like, I can learn as I go.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff is that way anyway. Like all my volunteers and internship projects were a lot of learn as you go kind of thing.
Sure. Sure. So for the time that you've been here, what has been your personally, your most exciting or most interesting find during your work?
So there's been a lot of interesting things I've found. The thing that was probably the most interesting is more so the humor behind it than the actual finding itself.
Okay.
We had a couple of members on our forums trying to figure out why the Hamilton deck watch chronometer, some had gold balance wheels, some had silver balance wheels.
Okay.
So I ended up going through the change orders trying to find, is there any reason why they changed it to help
Right.
answer that.
Yeah.
We found that it was, first we couldn't find enough gold to make the balance wheels at the production level we needed.
Sure.
Then it was the nickel silver content needed to be changed. Then it was we have better materials that can change it.
Right.
But one of the interesting things in there was a letter from the U.S. Naval Observatory when they were sending the actual chronometers in to model them off of the Ulysses Nardine one that they
Right.
wanted all the American ones.
Yeah.
And it basically said the Hamilton one they had sent in pretty strong words was terrible and would never meet any qualifications that were stated out and all that.
Yeah.
And the person that had gotten that letter back circled that line in red crayon and wrote next to it, "Now we know what John Harrison felt." Speaking of John Harrison, created
Yeah.
the chronometer.
Yes, exactly.
So
yeah.
that was pretty interesting to read that, because as we were finding that, I was helping set up the new display in the little window that looks like the actual chronometer, the astrolabe and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
with the sextant and
Yeah.
that's so funny. I think that's what's really cool about having the opportunity to access the actual source documents and materials is you have that human element that, especially for stuff that a lot of watch people are familiar with. You know, it's all sort of become everybody has the same information, or you can find it on the forums here and there. But to go through and see how the people in the time were reacting to things has to be really, really cool.
Yeah, especially when you see in there they're talking about, like, at the time, company secrets of things that are happening.
Right.
Or this person just came over to us from the Seth Thomas Clock Division. They told us this is what they're doing. Let's try to figure that out so we get the better contract than them.
Yeah.
You find those kinds of things everywhere. I mean, one of my other internships I had done, there was a news article for an event that family was throwing in Chester County, and on the backside of that news article was a write-up of Adolf Hitler's visit to Britain in the early 1930s.
Yeah, perspective is everything when it comes to the historical stuff, right? Do you have a favorite book that's in the library?
I mean, favorite in terms of I reference it the most would probably be the Bailey Looms, Watchmakers and Clockmakers.
Okay.
I reference that probably every day with stuff.
Yeah.
In terms of a favorite thing to read, I haven't read through deeply enough in a lot of them to have a solid favorite of it. But the ones on repair work, those I kind of have a little more favoritism leaning towards, because that has a lot of, you see the way that repair changed through the ages.
Right.
Like if you go to the early DeCarl stuff, he says dip stuff in gasoline. Then you go to the modern ones and it's, oh, you have to use this specific thing to clean this specific part.
Yeah. I'll try dipping my watches from work in gasoline and see what that does to them. So if somebody is sort of new to the watch space, or even a collector that's never really done much historical reading, what are 3 books that you would recommend to people if they're just starting out the more historical deep dives?
In terms of watches or clocks?
Either.
Okay, so if you're going into the clock area, something I really would recommend are the it's kind of cheating a little, the books by Brian Looms. He wrote a lot of stuff on the early long case clocks. It kind of helps you understand things.
Sure.
John Roby wrote another 2-volume piece that's really good on that. If we're going into the watch aspect, A lot of that stuff kind of gets more specific once you get into brands and that.
Yep.
So that kind of depends on your brand, what you want to look at. But just in general, it would probably be the repair books. So that kind of gives you a good sense of the parts involved and why certain things are done the way they are.
Yeah.
Specifically, George Daniels watchmaking is a great one
yeah,
to go right into.
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff goes right over my head, especially when it gets technical, but it's good to understand kind of probably one of the better watchmakers of today.
Oh, yeah?
Talking about watchmaking in general.
Yeah.
You get a good sense of the guy in the field, most well respected at the time, what he thinks of the stuff that's happening.
Right, exactly. And then last thing before we go, what are you wearing today?
I have on a Bulova Marine Star Quartz. My wife bought it for my birthday last year.
Nice, awesome. Well, hey man, nice talking for a little bit, and we'll let you get back to work. So.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.